It is so good to be with everyone again today. Have we had a good week? Yes, it seems like it. And it's so awesome to see just the stuff that happens throughout the week. So if it's your first time here on a Saturday, we pretty much have programs throughout the week at Gracegate. And honestly, you couldn't have joined us for a better weekend because we are continuing our series about oops. And we've been looking at some of the regrets that we've had in life and trying to actually just figure out how to make better decisions in life. And if you have been here last week or the week before, have you gained anything from coming? Yes? Only a few. Okay. Well, I hope today that changes, and I hope this series we took from a book from Andy Stanley, and it's really practical stuff and questions that I think is so helpful to us just making better decisions in life. So over the past few weeks, we've been learning, and these are a few things I jotted down that I think we've been learning. The first is that the quality of our lives is determined by the decisions we make. All right? The quality of our lives is determined by the big or the small decisions that we make daily. All right? No matter what they are, the big or the small, the significant, or what we may think is insignificant, actually determines the quality of our lives. And we've also been learning that we are where we are because of the decisions we have made. All right? We are where we are today because of the decisions we have made. There could be a few external factors, but most of the time I am where I am because of the decisions I have made. And we've been seeing that I am responsible, 100% responsible for all the decisions that I have made in my life. And I don't know about you, but I have made some really unwise decisions in my life. And therefore, why not speak about some principles and some questions that can really help us and actually move us forward in life. And something else we've been learning as well is that our futures will be determined by our decisions. Our futures will be determined by our decisions. So every decision that we make will actually impact our future. And not only will it only impact our future, but most of the time the decisions we make actually impact the people who are closest to us as well. And so we've been trying to discover how can we actually get better at making decisions. And the good news is as well that we believe in a relational God who is actually for us and who actually wants the best for our lives. And we see that actually God wants to guide and direct our lives, all right? That he is not just up in the sky, just looking down, trying to catch us off guard when we do something wrong. But no, he's actually a relational God who wants to move into our lives and actually help and direct us as we make decisions. The thing about God is that he doesn't make decisions for us, which is quite incredible because he gives us that free will to actually make our own decisions ourselves. And but we know that he is a relational God who actually wants to come close and guide us and direct our lives. So that's the good news. And the first week when we spoke a bit about the questions that we're learning, can anyone remember what the first question was that we spoke about? Give you a clue. Here it is. All right. Am I being honest with myself? Really. All right. Am I being honest with myself? Really. And we sort of spoke a bit about this plastic truth, these lies that we tell ourselves, and how this plastic truth starts to become cement. All right. It becomes this truth that we believe, and it's something we can't really see. And therefore, asking this question that actually helps us to really dig deeper and to really see, hey, why are we really being honest with ourselves? Like, really? And we saw that actually we can only make better decisions if we are truly honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves in order to move into a better, more purposeful, more meaningful future. And last week, Byron smashed out the question about legacy, and this was the question where he asked the question, what story do I want to tell? What story do I want to tell? And he looked at the why. What is your why? Is your why greater than just yourself? And removing sort of the me out of it. And we saw like, hey, what story do I really want to tell? At the end of my life, as I leave my legacy, what story do I want to tell? And so today, we're going to go on with our next question. But before we get there, I want to ask everyone a question, all right? And I want your help with this. I want you to almost raise your hands as we go through different scenarios. But this is the question I want to ask you. Have you ever ignored a warning sign? All right? Have you ever ignored a warning sign? All right? Or a warning light? And maybe if you don't know what that is, I've got a bit of a definition for what a warning sign or a warning light is. And pretty much it tells us that there is a problem, all right, before it becomes a bigger problem, all right? Anyone ignored a warning light or warning sign before? All right, how about this? Are there any low fuelers out there? If we can go to the next slide, all right? Raise your hand quickly. We're in church. This is a safe place. How many have you ignored the low fuel light? All right? All right? How many of you are maybe the spouse or the partner who does this, right? And causes quite a lot of tension because when the partner then gets in the car, I won't mention any names, and they're late for something, then, they find out that, hey, there's no fuel in the car, all right? So it's a warning light, and for some of us, this is something that, reveals information to us, but we just ignore it, all right? How many of you ignore this warning light, all right? Yes, let's be honest. If you've been coming to Gracegate for a while, you would have probably been on Constellation Drive at the turn, and this light catches so many of us. And for most of us, we just ignore it, or we've paraphrased it to say, just put down the petrol, eh? Like just speed right through. How about this? The check engine light. Anyone ever ignored that? All right? Okay. If you have, that's bad news, all right? That probably has a big consequence, an expensive consequence. And that is probably a warning light that you don't want to actually ignore, all right? How about maybe this warning sign? Are there any people in our audience today who just don't really care if it's a few days off or expired, all right? Who are you guys, all right? That you would rather drink coffee with sour milk than just drink it black or go down to the dairy, all right? Or how about this? And actually, for this one, don't raise your hands, all right? Who's ignored these warning lights, all right? Yeah, we know who you are, all right? But there's something interesting that in life we have so many warning signs and warning lights, but we tend to ignore them, all right? We tend to actually just pass them by. And it's interesting because actually it's helping us. It's a caution to actually not create a bigger problem, but we ignore it, and then we have a bigger problem at the other side. And one of the things that we're going to learn today is that inside of us, we actually have heaps of warning signs, all right? Internally, we have voices, and this is numerous ways how many of us describe it. Maybe it's a gut feeling. All right, it's a gut feeling that we know actually, there's something that just doesn't sit right with me. It bothers me, all right? Maybe we define it as a red flag, something that we know actually I need to pay attention to this because this is probably not good for me, but we ignore it and at the expense of actually probably making an unwise decision. Maybe we define it as a little something in the back of our minds, all right, that it's just bugging us at the back of our minds. It's speaking to us. We hear this voice. It's our conscience. It's this tension. And for some of us, it's just the way God directs our lives, how He wants to speak to us in our lives. And all of us have experienced this. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, all of us has experienced these warning signs or this tension inside of us that is cautioning us, that is actually trying to, give us a warning to, hey, there's a problem in this decision. But it's so interesting that often we actually ignore this. We ignore this feeling, this emotion, this voice that's speaking to us. Just a couple of, I think it's years ago, Zols and I, we traveled to the Philippines, and we were so fortunate to go to this incredible island. And we were speaking to some backpackers that we had met along the way, and they shared with us this place that we could go to, this island, really deserted. There's literally nothing around there. You stay on the beach. It's awesome, and it's really cheap. So both Zols and I thought, oh, this is a great idea. Let's do it. So we went to the local sort of taxi rank, and we tried to get a ride, and we got a guy who said, yeah, he'll take us. But as we got into this van, all the windows were tinted, and there were two guys in the front, Zols and I just in the back, and there was just this gut feeling that I had inside of myself that this doesn't seem quite right. This seems quite dodgy. I don't know. And Zols was feeling the exact same way. The guy was quite rude to us as well. And so I was mapping where we were going on my phone just to make sure we were going to the right place. But honestly, it was in the middle of nowhere. And at one point, the guy in the front passenger seat took out a balaclava and covered his face and was speaking on his phone wildly. And I was just getting more and more anxious. So was Zalia. So I was then digging in my bag, emptying out my wallet, hiding money in all different pockets and in my socks and stuff, just in case anything happens, trying to hide our passports. And at one point, halfway through, the guys actually stopped and they said, okay, this is where you guys need to get out. And we were like only halfway to our destination that we agreed to go to. And so we had that, we just had this gut feeling. We argued our way through, and eventually these guys took us all the way. But I was still a bit sus about this whole thing. And have you experienced that feeling before? You just know something's wrong or something's up. They dropped us off at the correct location. We were so grateful to get out the van and see other people because we were honestly in the middle of nowhere. And then they just left and they took off and nothing happened, which, thank goodness, we're here today. But it's interesting because there's this gut feeling that all of us have at some point. And I don't know who they were, if they were trying to do anything, but later on it was interesting because I watched Captive, a documentary on Netflix, and it was interesting, but they showed some tourists who have been taken hostage from that island. And then I started just doing some more research, and I saw, wow, how many tourists have actually been taken hostage? So it was quite interesting, and nothing happened to us, but you know that gut feeling, right? I want to draw it out because I know we all experience it, but we experience it even with the decisions before we make any decision. We experience this feeling, this tension inside of us that is trying to communicate to us, but often what we do is we ignore it. And therefore today, the question that we want to discuss is this question: is there a tension that needs my attention? Is there a tension that needs my attention? Is there something that you're wrestling with currently today that really needs your focus and your attention? It's a warning light. It's showing you that there could be a problem. If you continue to go down this route, there could be a problem. Is there a tension that needs your attention? We owe it to ourselves to actually pay attention to this tension. Now, what most of us do is this is what we do, all right? We see the warning sign, and guess what we do? We ignore it, right? Or we exaggerate the whole situation and we say, oh, doesn't look as if there's that much water. I think, oh, it's a Toyota. She'll be right, mate. I reckon we can do it, right? And we actually, we exaggerate. We try and get information. We're really optimistic about now how this could be, and we actually maybe just ignore the warning sign. Or maybe it's something like this. There's the sign. It says the shark has been sighted today. Enter water at own risk. We see the sign, all right? We feel that tension, but then we look around and we see that, but the beach is full of people swimming. And if it's only bothering my conscience and it's not bothering theirs, then hey, I mean, it should be okay, right? I mean, there's a grandma swimming as well. So definitely, it should be okay, right? But this is the thing with us and in our decision making, when we feel this tension inside of us, all right, when we feel that, oh, I really got to do something about it, but actually, when we look around and we see others aren't doing it, we maybe just ignore that tension. This is how this person communicates it. He says this, he says, because of the pressure to fit in and to please, we can find ourselves making decisions that don't align with our highest good. And if you stop to think about that, wouldn't you call that like stupid? Right? Wouldn't you think that making decisions that aren't going to benefit you is kind of like the dumbest thing you can do, right? Like, I mean, it's the most unwise thing to do. But because of these outside pressures, all right, we tend to actually just continue down that route, ignore the tension, and go ahead and make that decision. He goes on and he says that when we make decisions from the fear of being judged and or rejected, we doom ourselves. I love that language. We doom ourselves to this people-pleasing brand of decision making. And I mean, this isn't just for teenagers, yeah. This is for us. I mean, this is us still being persuaded by culture, by our peers, by our family, by what others think or what they're not going to think. And we make decisions that are not for the highest good of ourselves. Or maybe when I saw this picture, this sort of, I don't know, I was uncomfortable when I saw this. And this is from an article, and apparently there's actually a warning sign. And I mean, when you look at this guy, you think like, man, what was he thinking, right? I mean, surely there's a tension that would have come up inside of him. Surely he would have had a gut feeling that this is not the wisest thing to do. Surely there's a warning sign that's flickering and saying, hey, this is pretty scary, you know. But him and probably most of us, we just ignore it and we think, oh, we can predict the future. It's going to be okay. Nothing's going to happen. And what's interesting about this is that our private decisions that we make actually have public consequences. Often, the decisions that we make affect those that are closest to us. And I can guarantee you that if I had to ask you a bit more about your regrets, I can guarantee you that most of us have some regrets, and our biggest regrets are probably because we've hurt or we've disappointed some of the people that are closest to us. And therefore, why not pay attention to this tension? We owe it to ourselves. If we want to actually have a more meaningful, purposeful, if we want to make better decisions for ourselves, then why not actually just pay attention to that tension? Why not actually stop and think about those warning lights when they echo to us? Another thing that happens is that sometimes, you know, there's nothing that bothers us, all right? There is no tension. We have no tension. We've made a decision. Everything's going great. I can remember this when I was out of high school. I was in a relationship with this girl, and I was loving it. Things were good. And then one of my friends came to me, and she said, hey, do you know that so-and-so, I'm not going to say her name, that she still likes her ex, and that they're actually still together and chatting all the time, and like she's playing you. And guess what I did? I did what any one of us would do. I ignored that tension. And I said, look, you don't know her the way I know her, all right? We're tight. I mean, you don't know the way I hold her hand and she holds my hand. Like, we're tight. And we ignore that tension. But guess what? That bothered me. Someone else revealed that information to me, and that bothered me. That sat with me, and I couldn't just ignore it. And so I did what probably some of us maybe should do, is I actually went and I approached and I actually spoke a bit about it. And guess what? my friend was right. And therefore, I ghosted her. All right? That would be the wise thing to do. All right? You're laughing, but some of you are in that same predicament today, right? You're in a relationship and you know there's a tension that you're not paying attention to. You know this isn't the wisest place for you to be in. Maybe some of the questions that others come to us and they say are something like this. They say, hey, that sounds good, but what's your wife going to say? Tension. Tension comes up. Maybe it's that, hey, but can you afford that? Tension comes up. You don't have that tension, but all of a sudden someone reveals it to you and you're like, what? What do they even know? All right? Maybe this one. Don't you have an exam tomorrow? It's for all the procrastinators out there, like myself. All right? Tension. Maybe it's like this. I thought you said you quit. Tension. All right? And often what we do is we tend to defend, we exaggerate, and we try and say, hey, no, and we just make up a story. We lie to ourselves. Or maybe I thought you were on a diet. Tension, right? And what happens in this situation is it creates relational tension. It creates relational tension. But honestly, if we really would love to move forward in life, we would be doing ourselves a favor if we listened to this advice. If we just listened and we just explored it a bit more, if we just paused and we paid attention to this tension. So today, I want to suggest the two things that we can do when we ask ourselves this question before we make a decision. Is number one, it is to pause. To pause. I know this is hard. I think this is probably the hardest thing that we can do. It's because we live in a culture where everything has to be fast-paced. We have to purchase it now or else we're going to lose out. Someone else is going to get the deal. We struggle to pause. We live in a hurried, busy life, a scheduled life constantly, that it's hard to actually pause and maybe just take a moment and a step back to just focus on that tension, to just evaluate it, to think about it. And I was thinking about it this week. It's so puzzling and funny for me because if I sit down on the couch and I try and find a Netflix series or episode that I want to watch, that takes me for hours, right? Is that the same with you? Like, I mean, eventually it's like an hour's passed and we haven't watched anything and it's too late, and so Zaz and I go to bed. But it's so interesting that we spend so much time looking and doing the reviews and seeing what's streaming currently or what's, in the top 10 with something that's so insignificant like Netflix. But when it comes to some of the bigger decisions that have an even more, a greater impact on our lives, we just fly through them and we ignore that tension. We don't do that due diligence. So why not pause? When we feel that tension, let it bother us. Let us explore it. Let's see what is it all about. So we pause, and then the second thing is to explore it. Explore it. Well, what does that mean? Like, well, why do I have this tension? Why is this bothering me? Why what that person said to me is this really affecting me? Why is it keeping me up at night? And we explore it, and I think this is one of the safest places that really God wants to meet us in, is when we actually, and we go back to the question that we started with in week 1, that am I being honest with myself really? Like when that tension comes up and we know we really need to deal with it, that we explore it, and either we bring it to God, maybe we speak to each other about it, we get a safe community, and we actually reveal it. We dig down deep to try and solve this tension. We owe it to ourselves to actually solve it. We owe it to ourselves to pay attention to this tension. I really love that I believe in a God who is a relational God, who's a father, that he wants to come and guide my decision making. That when this tension actually comes about, when I feel it, when I hear maybe my conscience speaking, or maybe God speaking to me. It's in those spaces that I love that there's a God who really wants to direct me in the right path. Isaiah explains it like this. And he says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. That there's this God who is actually not only us following him, but him actually following us and wanting to speak into our life and to direct us in the right path. And whether we make the choice to go left or whether we make the choice to go right, he doesn't abandon us, but he's still there to speak into our life and to show us and to reveal that tension and to say, hey, maybe it's time that you took this route. Maybe it's time that you actually dealt with that thing that is actually bothering you. Today I want to end off with this passage that King Solomon wrote. And he wrote this, hundreds of years ago, but the principles are so relevant for us today. And basically the way King Solomon wrote this letter, it's actually a letter that he wrote, and he wrote it as a father actually writing it to his son. And for those who don't know King Solomon, he was announced and sort of everyone thought to him as being one of the wisest men that ever lived. And I love how he just paints a picture for us in this letter of what a relational God looks like and what it actually means to invite God into our decision making. He says this, he starts off and he says, my son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart. He says, hey, I just want to remind you of my values and my principles and the things I've spoken to you. And I don't want you to just have it as a head knowledge, but I want you to have it as a heart knowledge. That when that tension comes, you know what you need to decide and which direction to go. And he says, why? Why is this important? And he goes on and he says, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. I love that. By actually remembering the teachings, by actually having them written on my heart, like that stuff's actually going to give me a life that is more meaningful and purposeful. It's going to prolong my life. It's going to give me a peace that I know this world needs. I know so many of us are wrestling with anxiety and stress and tension. And if we just follow these ways, if we just follow that voice speaking to us, we'll experience this peace and this prosperity. And I love this word prosperity because I think it's a richness, it's a wealth, and nothing that finances will bring. But this is just a deep contentment of being in relationship with God. And then he goes on and he says, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. And when I read this, I could only think of our dog Maple and the chain that she has around her neck and the identity tag that she carries, that if she gets lost, hey, someone will hopefully phone us and we'd be able to be reunited with her, right? And I think this is what God is actually communicating here, and is he's actually saying, hey, let love and faithfulness be around you, surround you. Like let God's love come so close to you that when you don't know which direction to go, you will know that there is a God who cares so much about the small and the big decisions that you make every day of your life. And I know about you, but I don't only need God's presence, on a Saturday, but I need his presence in every minute of the day. When I'm angry, when I'm frustrated, I need God's presence in those seasons. I need his love, his faithfulness. And then again, write them on this tablet on your heart. Like not only on the head, but let it feel it. Let it go deep. And then he says, then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. And I love this Because what he's saying here is you're going to win favor. You're not going to earn favor. You're going to win favor. You know, as God speaks into your life and you keep following his direction, guess what? You're going to be making better decisions. You're going to be having less regrets in your life. And you know what that is going to impact? That's going to impact your relationships. That's going to impact not only your relationship with God, but your relationships with each other. There's going to be restoration there. There's going to be just deep, content relationships. And then he goes on to a passage that often we all know, where he says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You see, this is what God really wants. This is where he wants us to go with this tension, that we will get to a place where we can truly surrender and trust in God with all our heart, with all the tensions. And I thought, the reason we ignore that tension often is because we doubt God. We doubt that he's got it on the other side for us. We're afraid that we're going to lose out, that we're going to miss out. But again, he says, just trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Like, stop leaning on your own understanding. We've seen how we lie to ourselves, how we're the worst enemy of ourselves in our decision making. And then he says this, he says, in all your ways, submit to him. Oh, the place of surrender, the place of just giving it to God, saying this tension, it's not leading me to a healthy place. And if only we can just get to that place of surrender and submitting it to God. I mean, it's the safest, the best place we can possibly be in our relationship with God. And then, and he will make your paths straight. He will make your paths straight. He will make your paths straight. You see, when we surrender, then God is 100% responsible for a surrendered life. I love that. When we surrender to God, he is 100% responsible for our surrendered life. And he will make our paths straight. He will speak to us. He will guide us. And every time that tension arises, if we surrender it and we say, hey, God, not my will, but your will, you guide me, we'll go to the place, the best place for us. He goes on and he shows us how that place looks. He says, do not be wise in your own eyes, but fear the Lord and shun evil. And fear the Lord, I see this as an attitude of acknowledging that God is so much bigger and knows so much better for our lives. So just acknowledge that and just have this attitude, hey, God, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you, and I'm moving away from the evil, from the things that are destroying me and moving me backwards in life. And then the last verse, I think, this is what it brings. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. I love this. That our decision making, that our relationship with the God who is for us, that as it reveals to us these deep crevices, maybe deep down in our heart, that is leading us in a direction that isn't the healthiest for us, as we surrender that, as we come into relationship with him, as we trust him, like this is going to bring us nourishment and health, the contentment that is so deep in our souls. I really want this. I crave this. I don't know about you, I've made so many bad decisions in life. And life has so many bad things that happen without us making bad decisions. So why wouldn't we get better at surrendering and trusting a God who is for us? He's for us. He's for you. Every bad decision that you've made, he wants to bring restoration and wholeness there. He wants to show you a hope and a future like Byron spoke about last week. It's for you. Today we're going to end, and I'm going to invite you guys to stand, and we're going to sing the song Oceans. And as we sing this song, I want to invite you to invite the Holy Spirit to invite God into your decision making. Not only today, but maybe this is a space where you can just say, hey God, this is a space where I want to surrender. This is a space where I want to surrender. So God, as we stand today, and as we're going to sing this song, God, I just want to pray that as you reveal that tension in us, today we sit here and we know exactly what that tension is. We know that it's bothering us, God, and it's holding us back. I pray that we will pause and that we'll explore it. That you will come into that space and that you will help us. Help us to move forward with more joy and contentment and nourishment for our souls and our bodies. Help us to see that you're a God of love and faithfulness, that you are loyal to us, and that you are responsible when we surrender our lives to you, God. Now we invite you into this space, God, into our decision making.